So 2020 is coming to a close, and I wanted to take some time to kind of reflect on, where I personally was coming into this year, where I am now, some of the things that I tried and experimented with, and the many, adventures we've gone on through streaming and, the YouTube content and so forth this year. Because at least in my eyes, a lot of things have changed around here since January, and I'm sure a lot of you have noticed those changes if you've been around since then. So first off, coming into this year, to my memory, I believe the first thing I sat down to do was work on the tutorial for Battle for Bikini Bottom any %. And the reason why I felt this was so important to get done at that time is because Rehydrated was coming out at some point during the year. We didn't know when the release date was, and I wanted to make sure that, at least while I was, putting half of my focus on Rehydrated when the game was out, that I had some kind of resource or well-crafted guide to be able to teach people how to play the original game while I was focusing on building resources for the new one. So from January all the way until the middle of March, I was working on this tutorial video and of course streaming as well. And this sort of became my first full-length edited video, 3+ hours of content. But at the same time, I wasn't spending as much time working on that as I was streaming. Because I stream for a full-time job, I can't just, stop streaming to work on these videos to get them pumped out. So it was a bit of a slow process, and the editing wasn't that great, but, it got the job done. In the middle of March, we premiered it on my Twitch channel, and I believe a day before or the day after, something like that, sometime around the premiere of this video, was when the pandemic erupted, and we all started locking down in the US. And as a result, we were all just stuck inside with nothing to do but playing video games. I guess reflecting on this in a positive way, there couldn't have been a better time for this tutorial to drop. Because when it did, there were so many people who were just, sitting around inside, not knowing when this was going to end, when it was going to get better and so forth, just looking for something to do. And during this time, between the release of this tutorial and the summer when Rehydrated came out, we saw an increase of 200 runners for the leaderboards. There were well over 200 people who learned the game and got into the speed run through this. This tutorial and the timing of which it came out was responsible for the largest growth in the game's leaderboard in the past 10 years. So, making the best of a bad situation, the beginning of this year is off to a pretty decent start for us. Now, at this point, there was one other thing that I wanted to try to get done before Rehydrated came out, and that was, of course, the Battle for Bikini Bottom documentary. So after the tutorial released, I immediately got to work on the documentary, as in, writing the script, which was going to be just one long, 6+ hour video. But as I was typing and, for over the course of 3 weeks of just all this research and narrative building and so forth, it ended up with 52,000 words. I was like, well, maybe it'd probably be, more accessible if I split this into multiple parts. So the plan was to originally have it be a trilogy, which, the first 2 parts were divided as they are now. But the third part was going to be everything that we haven't covered yet up to 2019, the summer of 2019, when the first 49 was achieved. But as I kept writing and the word count got higher, I decided that maybe it'd be best to, kind of split up the third part into 2 parts. So that's how we ended up with the whole 4-part, quadrilogy of videos. I hope that's the right word for it, at least. So because of how much limited information we had on part 1, back then, I don't think the Twitch chat logs were being saved from my memory, and there weren't as many live clips of people's reactions to stuff and so forth. And it was based on a time of this game when I wasn't around to witness it. I was able to bang out the first part of the documentary in around a week and a half. And this included the couple of, run-throughs and edits that I did on the script as well. One of them being the time that Loader and I went through and, we worked out some of the, preferences he had for how he wanted to read the script. So yeah, part 1 was pretty simple, and I didn't really expect it to do it nearly as well as it did. But as you guys know, it broke 500,000 views in a very short amount of time, which became my most popular video ever. And keep in mind, this is also the first time I ever keyframed anything was in this video. The PC Gamer article showcased in the beginning of that video was the first time I ever used a keyframe in anything ever. So part 1 was really a learning experience for me, and part 2 of the documentary took a bit longer. I think it was a 40-day period for editing that one, which included the 6 different script rewrites that I went through. And of course, trying, try different transitions and get better with the keyframes and so forth. Part 2 ended up becoming, the single greatest video I've ever made. I don't think anything else comes close to that in terms of the quality and effort that I put into it. And shout outs to Loader too, because his voice work was just so many steps up from the first one as well. Along with some of the community members we got in as actors for the skits, it was really a lot of fun to make. And a lesser told story over here on the YouTube side of things, I was actually dealing with tendonitis in my wrist for a good, 2 weeks of working on this video. During this time, I was not streaming full-time hours. I was more just doing a couple of hours of runs a day, maybe one attempt a day, like full 100% speed run, and then going to work on the documentary for like 10 plus hours after on a daily basis. And even when I wasn't working on it, I was still sitting around thinking about it, gathering new ideas, experimenting with things on the timeline and like moving things around, tweaking it to perfection and so forth. So long story short, I ended up working myself so hard that I ended up injuring my wrist from doing it. So for a good 2 weeks of that process, I was working with just one hand and resting the other because I was afraid I wasn't going to be able to play Rehydrated if I didn't heal in time. Thankfully, it all worked out, and I was able to play Rehydrated. I was pretty much healed by the time Rehydrated came out, and I was able to go back to streaming full time. And the hype influx from Rehydrated kind of carried my stream back to where it was and better, despite having knocked my hours way down as a sacrifice to be able to finish the second part of the documentary before Rehydrated came out. Because if you remember, the game was announced, the release date was announced in like April. And that was like in the middle of my time working on part 2, or at least around the time I started the editing process, I believe. So it was a really, really rough timeline to get this video exactly how I wanted it in time to release before Rehydrated came out. And talking about a time that's so special to me, like the first year that I ever started running this game, it's been at this point half a decade of a journey. Like it had to be perfect, especially for my friends that I met during that year. It all had to just be done the right way for all of us. So I'm so happy that turned out the way it did. And then Rehydrated, we played that for a couple of weeks, had a lot of fun with it. Went back to playing BFBB full time, which I'd never stopped playing the game. Like, sure, I had to stop playing when my wrist was injured, but through that whole, up until this point this year, I'd play the game every single day, had never stopped. But toward the end of the summer, I started to experience a little bit of burnout. Like I started to feel like, I guess now the term that we're calling it is rehydrated fatigue, where, we flew so high, and because, like the hype for these shiny new toys and games, that they don't last forever, it was bound to drop off at some point. And then that led me into like a spiral of questioning, like, did I do everything the way I should have? Could I have gotten more people interested in this game if I tried harder? I started to feel like I wasn't doing an adequate job at translating the initial hype of Rehydrated into the passion that we have for the original game. Like a lot of us viewed Rehydrated as like this big ticket to, blow the original game up and get everybody excited long-term about the community. But I think what happened is there was so much BFBB content up until that point this year, the tutorial, the 2 documentaries, the remake itself, the fact that people were stuck inside the whole time with, a lot of these guys, they were just absorbing this content nonstop every day for over half a year at this point. Like it made sense for people to get fatigued, including myself. Like I was fatigued on the idea that people were starting to forget about the game and, not care anymore. But I think now that like almost half a year has passed, it's pretty clear to me that people just needed some time off, and we're starting to see people get interested in the game again. There's been a lot of strat development in the speedrun, not just people getting better at the game that's gotten people, to turn an eye again and be like, oh, okay, what's going on here? I think with winter break here now, people are going to start coming back and relearning the game now that they have time. It's nice to see things kind of return to normal in a sense. But still, a good half of this year was kind of consumed by my own personal struggle of trying to figure out, like, as a content creator and a speedrunner, like, how am I going to get back to where I was? It was just harsh for me to, go from having, like, well over 1,000 people in my stream watching this game and enjoying it to like even down to like the mid 200s at some point at the low of everything, because at that point it was like election month, people were at each other's throats over that. It was like the lockdown started to get into effect again, and I started to get a lot of neck and back fatigue from all the stress I was inflicting on myself from speed running and so forth. It was kind of a mix of like feeling like my content could never rise to the expectations that I had it at when I was working on the documentaries and streaming Rehydrated and so forth. Like I felt like I'd almost like fallen from grace with all that stuff. And as far as speedrunning goes, I'd felt like I'd long since fallen from grace, seeing as the majority of the year was spent working on content from the game and building resources to teach people how to play. I myself wasn't focusing too much on improving in the game, even though I was still playing every day. I just felt like I was kind of falling behind on stuff. I wasn't innovating as much as I wanted to. So these past few months, I've pretty much just spent them focusing 99% on speedrunning. And I'm starting to feel a little bit better about that. I think it was a well-needed break from making videos, because I was feeling like anything I could possibly make or try to put out was never going to reach the standard that I had for myself with the first 2 documentary parts. And that's another reason why I just feel like I need to take some time before going back to working on the documentary itself, because it's not going to be as good if my motivation is just to try and get back to where I was in terms of the quality of my work. Because when you try too hard to make something good, I feel like it's easy to lose sight of why you're making it in the first place. So hopefully at some point next year, I regain that passion that I had for the first two parts of the documentary. You know, the sense of urgency, like it has to be done at this point so people can enjoy it before this thing happens. Like how I was lining up the last one with the Rehydrated release. Like at some point, I'm going to feel the motivation to do it the right way. And I'm thankful for those of you who have stuck around and in the meantime, taking a chance to enjoy my other content while I'm going through this phase of trying to figure out how to take on these next two parts and make them even better than the last one. So overall, entering 2020, I feel like I just was not confident and did not feel at all able to take on some of these projects that I ended up well over exceeding my expectations in. And of course, streaming, we had our highs and lows. It was more of like a roller coaster this year than anything. I learned a lot of important lessons about myself and what I want to do going forward with my stream and my YouTube channel and so forth. But most importantly, how much this game means to me and how much the community surrounding it means to me as well. This year I got into trying a lot of new things as well with the COD streams. We're going back to doing casual playthroughs if you saw the Chicken Little thing that I did the other day. And that'll be up on this channel soon as well, by the way. I guess the weirdest adaptation that I've personally had to go through this year was just the Post-Rehydrated Era. It's just so surreal that the game is no longer a thing that we're looking forward to, but rather a thing that we're reflecting on. And I've got plenty of thoughts on that I could probably go into on another video. So I guess this begs the question, do I feel like I'm better off leaving 2020 than going into it? Personally, I think yes. I feel like I've expanded to several different areas and tried so many different things that the amount of experience that I have now is going to help me a lot next year in whatever I decide to do. But just know that whatever I end up doing is going to always be with that core mission to help build appreciation for this game and entertain you guys. I want to figure out some new ways to add variety and, new tastes to my stream while still staying true to the values that we built our stream on. And, I guess suppose in that same vein of stream improvements, I've also learned a lot this year about my own limits and how far to push myself to avoid reaching the point where I'm making myself and others uncomfortable. So I just want to say, if you ever tuned in at some point this year and felt like you weren't having a good time watching, I'm doing my best to make things better. Overall, this year was just a roller coaster of different ideas, motivations, and emotions, so forth for myself, mixed with a bit of imposter syndrome in a bunch of different areas. We all have our rough patches, and I personally just choose to keep streaming through it. I like to put it all out there, show you guys what's going on inside my head. Whether it's a good day or a bad day, rain or shine, I always try to just get on and just do what I have to do to get better. So with that being said, just going forward, I want to try to take care of myself better, put myself in the best situation to be able to go on stream every day and just have fun with you guys, I think we have a formula that works. And throughout 2021, I just want to focus on making that even better and expanding it and just seeing how far we could take this to build a better stream, get better at the game, and entertain more people than ever before. So my immediate plans for 2021, well, at the moment I'm still focusing a lot on improving my speedrun times because I didn't really get to focus on that too much at the first half of this year. But as soon as I feel like I'm in a position where I'm more motivated to work on long form videos and I'm satisfied with a lot of my personal bests, I will get back to making those long form videos. And the ones I had planned are a full 100% tutorial just like the 80% one last year and the final two parts of the documentary. Hopefully at some point this year, the pandemic starts winding down to a more controllable state where I'm able to travel safely and get some of these shoots that I want to get done to truly make these the grand finale of this 9-year period that I chose to capture. And of course, I want to keep in the mode of doing videos like this where I just sit down and talk to you guys. I kind of figured recently that because I'm a streamer and I have all this experience just sitting and talking, I might as well just make these to keep you guys updated on what's going on inside my mind, because these are the kind of videos that I enjoy watching too. And that's kind of my mindset going forward. As far as streaming and YouTube goes, I want to create things that I would personally want to see myself, the things that I think are missing on these platforms that I personally want to see. So going into next year, I will again continue my mission to be my best self, make my stream a better place to hang out, get better at speedrunning, and at some point maybe try to take YouTube more seriously, because at this point it's just a hobby. But what I was feeling when I was working on those documentaries is definitely a lot more passion than I've had for it in the past. So I just want to say again, thank you guys for all the support over here and all the positive feedback that you've given me for these videos. They've really encouraged me to want to take it to the next level. But because of that, I need some more time to kind of gather my thoughts and rebuild that passion that's required to produce something that's going to be able to top the last ones that I made. So thank you for understanding, and I'm sorry to keep you waiting so long with some kind of an explanation for why I'm not working on the documentaries right now. Streaming 6 to 8 hours every day, not feeling like I'm capable of doing what I want to do right now because of the pandemic, and in general just feeling a bit fatigued from working on that stuff. I mean, remember, like I worked myself to the point of injury the last time that I worked worked on these things. So having cleared my mind on everything that's happened this year, my plans going forward, thank you guys for listening. And I'm excited to bring you more new and fun stuff to this channel and expand on this community in the near future. Thanks, everybody.